Probably 99% of Americans believe that. How many people believe the deed of trust and the note are one document? Before you got here, honestly believed they were one document. You're screwed. That's it. Welcome to America. You cannot win. Now, how do you win? You get rid of the lie. See, the bank doesn't believe it's one document. They've never considered it one document. When you sign the note, it goes over here. When you sign the deed of trust, it goes over here. That's not one document. That's two separate documents. Where does the deed of trust go? It gets recorded. Where does the note go? A bunch of different banks. The names notwithstanding. Is that two different documents? That's it. That's prima facie evidence. And law, prima facie evidence is evidence that is proof itself. Can one document go two different places at the same time? Yes. The law actually states they can never be apart. It's two different things. They can never be apart. If they're apart, they're not one document. Deed of trust is a simple contract. That's all it is. Now, I can tell you, and nobody will do it, is go back and read Bloom on Contracts of, I think, 1892, which is a foundation of contract law in America, but you're not going to do it. I did it. I would suggest you do it, but you won't, so I'll abridge it. Deed of trust is a simple contract. There's a lot of crap in there. None of it means anything. It's all lies. But we do know, pursuant to Carpenter v. Longan, 1872, that a promissory note can survive without a deed of trust. A deed of trust cannot survive without the promissory note. When I'm teaching this on Sunday, I always say the deed of trust is the tail. The note is the dog. You cut the tail off the dog, tail's going to die. The dog will just be pissed off. So the note can survive without the deed of trust. The deed of trust doesn't have a note with it. It's no good. It's just a simple contract. Both parties better, specifically perform. So knowing that, here's the note. Can it survive all on its own? Okay, so you give the note to the house. Oh, I'm sorry, Monroe, let me get to that. The way we think it happens is this is one document. And we go over to a bank. And we go, hey, can we get some money, get this house? And the bank says, yeah. The bank hands the money over to the builder, and the builder gives you over the house. That's what we think happens, right? Doesn't happen that way. Doesn't happen that way. Yes, it used to, and the earth used to spin in a 360-degree cycle instead of 365 days, and blah, blah, blah. And there's a whole lot of used tos. I used to be in great shape. I mean, doesn't really matter now. That looking at law in a way that it doesn't function is going to cause you to always lose. So you must look at it the way that it functions now. And here again, here's the way that it functions now. These are two separate documents. We know they're two separate documents. This one goes off to the county recorder. This one gets moved bank to bank to bank to bank. And I will explain why that is. So we give them the note. They give us the house. 3 seconds later or 15 years later, we give them a deed of trust. They don't give us the money. They put it over here. So now they've got the note. They've got the deed of trust. They've got the money. And they want the house. Yeah. Yeah. Oh.
She's not picking it up at all.
Okay. If you have a question, raise your hand, and I'm sorry, we'd plan that out. So there's 4 aspects to a deal. My button just broke. Yeah, see, don't wear these things, man. These things just suck. Yeah, I'm sweating like a pig. Yeah, go ahead.
One of the basic premises that I think I've noticed people missing on this is how can I, the average person, put a signature on a piece of paper and have that be worth a house, or and then the other document have that be worth the amount of money that they presumably don't give us. It's a sense of how can I actually just put a name down and not actually have $100,000 for the house.
You don't.
But that I think is the premise that people don't get when you
Yes,
talk about your model there.
You're absolutely right, and I will explain that. It is not your signature. You get a lot of these Patriot myths, your signature's worth $300 million, and yeah. You've got to understand banking law. You've got to understand money transmitter law. You got to understand the UCC. Law is law. Okay. And the law since December 28th of 1913 for currency, money in the United States, is based on the Federal Reserve Charter, which is called fiat currency. That's what we call it now. That's not what they call it then. Does everybody, who does not, it's a hard question to ask because most of you think you know what the Federal Reserve, how many people think they know what the Federal Reserve is? How many people think the Federal Reserve has something to do with the government? Good. Okay, so none of you think that the Federal Reserve has anything, because it doesn't. It's a little company in San Juan, Puerto Rico. That's all it is. So, what's that? Yeah, let's not get into that. But let's talk about the law. Because the way you're going to win in court is understanding the law. So, we have a fiat currency system, monetary system in the United States. F-I-A-T currency, fiat. Not like the car, although they did operate that way. In other words, there's no basis for the value of the money. That's why we have what's called inflation. Give you an example. In 1910, a $20 gold piece would buy you a suit, shoes, and a hat. Have you seen the price of gold lately? In 2010, 100 years later, a $20 gold piece will buy you a suit, tie, or suit, shoes, tie, and a hat. Again. Okay, but in 1910, that was $20. In 2010, that's $1,500. That's inflation. Now, gold is still gold. Thank you. So, if you understand that concept of where inflation comes from and all of that, because there's nothing backing our money. No, there's not gold in Fort Knox, guys. There's not. Okay? We just print money. You don't want to know why we print money, and I'm not going to go into it. You definitely don't want to know why we print money. But there's nothing truly backing our money. So then, how do we generate funds? What? Well, we've got the mic, so we don't want any cutting in. You can raise your hand so that you can get there. No, it's not on that. Take a look at one of these little things we call money in your pocket. You'll notice on there it says a Federal Reserve note. It says note. Note in law is evidence of a debt. So everything you think about money is backwards. Now, I'm not going to teach you that today. But a note is evidence of debt. So if you have a $20 bill in your pocket, you have evidence that you owe somebody 20 bucks. And I know that's real abstract, but that's the law. Don't try and understand it here. It takes a long time to get that. But that is a note. And what is this? This is a note. This is a promissory note. That's a Federal Reserve note. But they're both notes. It's the same exact law, same exact definition. So when you get this promissory note, you decide whether or not to sign it. You sign it, and you give it over to the bank. Now, let's kind of go over some laws here concerning notes. That's all in the UCC. I put that in the book somewhere. Page what? Thank you. Okay. So if you look at the UCCs, let's go to page 11, Black's Law Dictionary. Altered, to make a change in, to modify, to vary in some degree. Well, then let's go back to page 10, look at 3-407, alteration. Means an unauthorized change in an instrument that purports to modify in any respect the obligation of a party. So, how could this piece of paper called a note be worth any money? Well, you have to understand what happens with the Federal Reserve. You take a note and you give it to the bank. The bank, because of the Federal Reserve Charter, whatever money they have in an account, they can now lend out 27 times that amount. Do you understand that? Do you understand if you give the bank $1 million promissory note, they take that $1 million promissory note and they sell it to another bank. That bank then gives them $1 million, and the first bank puts it in a savings account, what's called a deposit account. Now they have $1 million in a deposit account. Now they can lend out $27 million. If you could do that deal, would you do that deal? That's why it's worth something. Now, where's the problem lie in this for us? Because remember, you should not worry about how they conduct their business. You must be concerned how you conduct your business. So, since you gave them the promissory note for the house, you've got the house and they got the note, then can they somehow redeem that promissory note if you don't pay back that promissory note and get your house back? Yes or no? Absolutely. Absolutely they can. Now, this is a caveat to what we're talking about here, because the foreclosure is not a redemption of the promissory note. It could be, but it's not. So what happens to the note that makes it to where they can't redeem it? They alter it. They stamp it, pay to the order of, then some kind of blank endorsement or maybe a signed endorsement, without recourse. How many people in here know what without recourse means? Okay, guys, listen to me on this. You've got to do this. All of this, a lot of what I teach is hands-on. If you don't live this, you won't understand it and you won't win in court. Get your buddy to give you a check for $50. Go down to your bank, the same teller you've been flirting with for the last 10 years. Endorse the back of it like you're going to cash it. And underneath that, write the words without recourse. You just started a party, because you're going to meet the bank president. You're going to meet the security guard. You may meet the cops. Two most powerful words in banking, without recourse. And you can listen to me and you'll laugh about it. Do it. It's a blast. If you're bored, it gives you energy. I've done it just because people don't believe it, but when you go and do it, The teller who doesn't know nothing about anything, she'll flip her lid.